Monosodium glutamate sounds more like a label on a laboratory chemical bottle than something sitting in your bowl of noodles. The name is long, packed with syllables, and enough to make anyone who took high school chemistry pause for a second. Yet your body has been familiar with it for far longer than the concept of food additives has even existed. Glutamic acid, the main component of MSG, is an amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein, and proteins construct your muscles, enzymes, and nearly every living tissue in your body. That means glutamate is not an unfamiliar intruder. It is a molecule so common that it naturally exists in ripe tomatoes, shiitake mushrooms, aged Parmesan cheese, and even human breast milk. When you take a bite of grilled meat and feel that savory richness spread along the sides of your tongue, it is not magic. It is the umami receptor officially recognized in the early 20th century detecting glutamate. Your body does not merely tolerate this molecule. It is designed to seek it out. So why has a compound that appears naturally in everyday meals carried a cloud of suspicion for more than half a century? The story did not begin in a kitchen, but in a letter. MSG does not create sweetness like sugar or saltiness like table salt. It functions more like a signal amplifier. When glutamate binds to umami receptors on the tongue, it triggers a cascade of nerve responses that heighten sensitivity to other flavor compounds in food. If you imagine it simply, it is like increasing the contrast on a screen so that details already present become clearer. At the molecular level, glutamate has the precise shape and electrical charge needed to fit into the binding site of the T1R1, T1R3 receptor, pair the proteins responsible for detecting umami. This compatibility is not accidental. Evolutionary biology favored the ability to recognize nutrient-rich protein sources, and glutamate is a reliable marker of protein breakdown. When proteins in meat or mushrooms are cooked or aged, they release free glutamate,
that is definitely pure,
intensifying that savory taste. This explains why bone broth simmered for hours develops such depth of flavor. Heat and time break apart proteins, releasing glutamate. When a small amount of MSG is added, typically only about 8% of a dish's weight, meaning just a few hundred milligrams in a bowl of soup, the flavor effect increases without changing the dish's fundamental character. What makes this especially interesting is that the mechanism does not depend on where the glutamate comes from. Whether it originates in a ripe tomato or from a packet of white powder, the molecular structure is identical. The tongue has no country of origin setting. Society, however, does. In 1968, the medical journal, the New England Journal of Medicine, published a short letter from Dr. Stock, Robert Ho Man Kwok. He described experiencing neck numbness, headaches, and fatigue after eating at a Chinese restaurant and speculated that MSG might be the cause. The letter was not a clinical study. There was no control group, no quantified data. It was a personal observation. From there, the phrase Chinese restaurant syndrome began appearing in popular media. When a term is repeated often enough, it starts to sound official. Media coverage at the time rarely distinguished between hypothesis and evidence. As a result, an unproven association gradually became a widespread fear. In the decades that followed, multiple double-blind, controlled studies were conducted. Most failed to find consistent evidence that MSG causes symptoms in the general population when consumed at typical dietary levels. Some individuals may report sensitivity when consuming very large doses on an empty stomach, but those levels usually exceed what is found in normal meals. It is worth noting that during the same period, MSG remained present in Western snacks, canned soups, and fast food without attracting similar concern. When labels do not emphasize it, fear is less likely to be triggered. The molecule remains the same, perception changes. And that raises another question. How does food fear take shape? Names play a powerful role in how we respond. Monosodium glutamate sounds more complicated than sea salt, even though both contain sodium. Sodium is the element responsible for saltiness, and the body requires it to maintain electrolyte balance. In MSG, sodium makes up about 12% of its weight, significantly lower than the roughly 39% found in table salt. Replacing part of table salt with MSG can actually reduce total sodium intake while preserving flavor.
As you can see,
Meanwhile,
the data is inconclusive.
natural
There's no
glutamate is
consistent
everywhere.
correlation here.
A ripe tomato
we
may
report
contain
no
hundreds
evidence
of
of
milligrams of
impact on
free
normal
glutamate.
diets?
Parmesan cheese aged 24 months can contain over 0.000 milligrams per 100 grams. These amounts are comparable to or higher than the MSG found in a serving of stir-fried noodles. The contradiction becomes clearer when we examine eating habits. A seasoned bag of potato chips may contain MSG, yet it rarely sparks controversy unless linked to a particular cuisine. When fear attaches itself to a cultural context, it moves beyond biochemistry and into the realm of bias. At this point, the story is no longer about a single molecule. It
Monosodium
becomes a
glutamate,
case
or
study
MSG, is a
in
fine
how
crystalline
incomplete
powder. Sea
information
salt, on the
can
other hand,
shape
has a much
consumer
coarser
behavior
texture,
for
as you can see
decades.
here.
If a short letter can influence an entire industry's reputation, then carefully examining evidence may matter more than we realize. The next time you taste a bowl of soup and notice that balanced, savory depth, you might remember that your tongue was programmed to recognize glutamate long before alarming headlines appeared. The story of MSG is not only about chemistry, it is a lesson in how we react to unfamiliar names and untested hypotheses. If this topic makes you curious about how a medical term can reshape an entire food industry, there are many similar stories waiting to be explored. Perhaps next time, we can examine another syndrome and trace where it truly began.
The presentation is certainly rustic.
It smells wonderful, but I do hope the hygiene standards are acceptable.
The misinformation is spreading faster than the actual virus data here.
We are seeing the same pattern in the network graph. It's accelerating.
The acceleration of digital adoption reshaped the market, culminating in the mobile-first economy we see today.
This is amazing. So much umami.
Chemistry is not just the study of matter, but the substrate of our very perception. We are what the food